Alright, Red Sox fans, here we are with some Labor Day baseball, September 1st, 2014, as the Red Sox play one of their division rivals, the Tampa Bay Rays, trying to take 2 out of 3, or rather 3 out of 4 in their series against Tampa. But right now, it is the 9th inning, they are tied, and Jake McGee, the closer, will be coming on to try and keep it a tie game. So the Red Sox, as it always seems to go in these rants, I always seem to complain about them not hitting or not pitching or not doing generally what you do to play good baseball. But this past road trip has been fairly successful to this point. They took 2 out of 3 from Toronto. They're trying to take 3 out of 4 from the Rays as Alan Craig, of course, flies out. Mr. Obstruction himself. But, the Red Sox, look, they're not going to make the playoffs. They're not a very good team. They're bitter disappointment. But I'll get more into that when the season's actually over. I would like to see them just play good baseball the rest of the way. I know that sounds cliche, but I'd like to see them have an above 500 September. I'd like to see them just continue at least hustling, continue what they've been doing through this road trip in the last 10 games or so. Just playing decent baseball. I don't mind if they lose, if they just put together better performances than the majority of this season. Because, as I mentioned, the season's been frustrating, it's been irritating. I feel like at times there's been some malaise around the team. They go into these long funks where they can't hit the ball at all. Even in this game, they only have a few hits, but at least they came back to tie the game. They're getting runners on and moving them, so at least it's something. To me, it seems like they're trying harder now in August than they were before. It seems like since the trades, even though they're not a great team, they're at least respectable. So I'm hoping they can at least keep that respectability going on into September, and I don't know what's going to happen in the offseason. No one really does. So Nava right now, after a quick out by Craig, after I was just praising how the team's hanging in there, they make an out in about 3 seconds. That's usually what they do after I say something good about them. But I don't even remember who's up. Daniel Nava. This actually is kind of like last year's postseason, though, in the fact that every time I film them and every time I'm about to celebrate something, they go down 1, 2, 3 in the inning, as Nava fouls one off to make it 1 and 2. It seemed like any time the Red Sox did anything monumental in last year's postseason, and there were plenty of monumental moments, the camera was off. Then I would turn the camera on, they'd be down by 2 or 3 runs, and they couldn't do anything about it. Every now and then there'd be a really good inning, but for the most part, the postseason coverage was just me yelling and screaming at everybody striking out. So don't be surprised if that happens again as Koji Uehara and Craig Breslow get ready in the Red Sox bullpen. Koji's another weird one. He is the Red Sox closer. There's really no denying that just because their bullpen, while good, doesn't have a clear-cut closer. But lately he's been struggling. He's blown a couple saves. And again, these aren't really saves that mean anything in the regular season. These games aren't really all that important. But still, you don't like to see your closer blowing saves. But then again, you keep in mind that Koji isn't exactly the closer of the future for this team anyway. He's a closer. He was a closer for a World Championship team last year, and he's been the closer this year. It's still done pretty decent despite the blown saves, but what is the plan at closer long term? Koji doesn't really solve that problem. Even if they bring him back for 1 more year, are you going to get the 2013 Koji or the inconsistent Koji from this year? And is that really, going forward, how you're going to build another championship team by having a closer that is, in his 40s, that is decent but not, doesn't have a lot of closing experience besides last year? So I don't know if they have an answer internally, the Red Sox. Of course, I've wanted them to try and explore acquiring Jonathan Papelbon. I've wanted them to, in terms of closers, I know there really aren't too many out there that are free agents or that are coming up to be free agents. Maybe they can get Andrew Miller back. Maybe he can be a closer going forward. I don't know. I don't know if the solution is in the bullpen already. But Koji Uehara is one of those players, and there are a few on the team, a few veterans that are decent players that just don't really have a future with the team in the direction they're going in. So it'll be interesting to see what the Red Sox do with those players, namely Shane Victorino, Mike Napoli. Even some of their other arms. Just players and pitchers that are good enough to, still have something left, but do they really want to spend their last couple of years in the big leagues on a team that's struggling to get to 500? And that's obviously going to depend on what else they do in the offseason, the Red Sox. Are they going to add an ace? Are they going to add a closer? Are they going to add pieces to make this team even better? Because as talented as they were last year, for whatever reason, it seems like they all fell asleep this year. Bogarts and Middlebrooks didn't really do anything to this point, and that's a foul ball. And Nava, speaking of Daniel Nava, he had a very disappointing beginning to the season. He's, last couple months he's been coming on strong. It seems like a lot of players have been actually playing up to their potential recently. And Ortiz, of course, has been having another great season. Dustin Pedroia was turning it around before he got this concussion. So, again, the Red Sox have talent. That's what's made the last few years so kind of frustrating. 2012, it just seems like they all fell asleep. 2013, they decided to turn it on. This team can be really good when they try. I know that's a cliche, again, but this team can be one of the best in baseball when their pitchers are going well, when their hitters are just being disciplined, and also, there's a difference between being disciplined and just taking pitches because you're unsure. The thing I liked about the Red Sox winning teams is that they took pitches, but they took pitches you're supposed to take. They didn't just take every pitch, as Nava just kind of grounds one to third, and that's the second out. Like, that was a decent at-bat by Nava. I know it was an out, but that was kind of the at-bats you'd see from the good Red Sox teams. Really long at-bats, 10, 11 pitches. Maybe they'd get a hit, maybe they wouldn't, but at least they would wear the pitchers down. This year, it just seems like they're taking pitches, and then they still swing at a crappy pitch. So it's just kind of inconsistent plate discipline, which is something, to me, you can work on. Even if you're not a great hitter, you can work on plate discipline. Even if you don't hit a lot of home runs, even if you don't drive the pitches you're supposed to drive, you can at least, lay off some pitches, foul off some pitches that are just outside the zone to keep the at-bat going. Because a lot of these crappy umpires, let's face it, they're going to call these pitches, even if they're outside the zone. Like that. That was a terrible swing. But anyway, umpires suck, and they always are going to, no matter what team you are, no matter where you're from, whatever. Umpires just suck. And you can't argue balls and strikes, which is the thing they're wrong about the most. So, keeping that in mind, it is important to swing, or at least make an attempt to swing at some pitches that are just outside the zone, because the pitchers don't know, or the umpires don't know what the strike zone is anyway. So, keeping that in mind, it's a good idea to take pitches if they're not strikes, but the umpires don't know what a strike is, so you do have to deal with that as well. That's what makes baseball so special, I guess, is that, their officials are just among the dumbest of human beings, let alone officials. And, that's what's made the challenge system kind of fun and satisfying, is that they've been wrong a lot. And they can't just sit there and stand on their pedestal anymore and say, oh, we're always right because we're the umpires. No, now you're not. Because we have several video challenges where the call's been overturned, so you've been wrong quite a few times. It'd be great if they did that with balls and strikes, because so many at-bats would be, maybe these at-bats would have a different outcome. But they won't, because the umpires have to be right all the time, even though they're never right. As Will Middlebrooks, he's got at least 2 strikes on him. Middlebrooks, of course, another interesting one, was a really good prospect, still could be. Got injured a lot this season. Again, I really don't know what to get out of this team as he pops one up. This same team could come back next year and win like 100 games, or they could just win 50 games. I mean, that's how ridiculous they are. All right, another 1, 2, 3 inning, but at least we got to hear me talk for a while. Red Sox, whatever, they don't do anything. Here we go.